first article is regarding India and Israel relationship. It's again, I mean, the points are very repetitive, which we have already done in various articles, that how India is trying to make a delicate balance between the Israel and Palestine with respect to its relationship, and it's, I mean, a new chapter in India's de-hyphenated policy with respect to Israel and Palestine. And India, which has been a champion of the Palestinian people's national aspirations, has built strong ties with Israel in recent years, because we are seeing that India is basically building strong ties with Israel, but India is also committed towards the Palestinian people's national aspirations, and which is basically for a sovereign and separate state for themselves as Palestine. Okay, so this is like all this is regarding that how the Israel president, he came into India, then our prime minister, he visited Palestine a month after it, and then all these visits are mentioned here, so we need not to go into that. Apart from that, it's saying that Mr. Modi in Palestine, he has reiterated that he hopes that Palestine soon becomes a sovereign and independent country in a peaceful atmosphere. And apart from that, a number of agreements between India and Palestine have been signed on the recent visit, and the agreements which have been signed, they are obviously for India funded projects in the West Bank, and India funded projects, like India is also trying to fund hospital construction in Palestine, apart from in on the education front also. So I mean, whatever the India is pursuing, it is showing its political realism. Okay, see, in politics, the realism is more about that you should look after your national interest. Okay, and nobody is your permanent enemy, and nobody is your permanent friend. So what is important is your national interest, and how much amount of power you are holding in the international relations or at the international platform. So definitely this kind of balancing between Israel and Palestine is showing India's realism towards it. And India wants to maintain the balance in its relationship with both Palestine and Israel, and at the same time strengthening bilateral ties with each separately. And this balance is very vital for India, because see, why Israel is important for us. We cannot altogether ignore Israel and just go for the Palestinian issue cause, okay, with respect to its this statehood. Because Israel is a source of defense equipment and agricultural technology as well. We are trying to get agricultural technology with respect to the desalination plants, and how Israel has basically, turned the saline water into, I mean, made it suitable for the crops cultivation. So we are also trying to have technology on that front from Israel. But it's not the case that only India is, in need of Israel. Israel also needs India, because Israel right now faces political isolation in international front over its occupation of the Palestinian territories, because we know that Israel have unauthorized settlements, okay, in West Bank, which was earlier a territory of Jordan, okay, and as well as in the Gaza Strip, okay. So Israel is facing political isolation on this issue in most of the country in West Asia. And with respect to this United Nations General Assembly vote right now, in which India also voted against this Donald Trump's declaration of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, it also shows that international public opinion is overwhelmingly against the occupation. Okay, and India, because India has, vital interest in the Gulf, and it also enjoys good relations with the other Muslim countries, for example with Saudi, with UAE, and right now we also visited Oman. Fine, so definitely India cannot afford to be, seen politically more closer to Israel at the expense of ties with Palestinians. So, but yes, I mean, see, right now, see, this visit in Israel, it's sending out a message that India's partnership with Israel is not at the expense of principled support with respect to the Palestinian cause. But yes, we can see a little bit, this difference in our approach, that earlier or traditionally India's views has been like that India supported the creation of an independent Palestinian within the 1967 borders. Whatever the condition was in the year of 1967 between Israel and Palestine, India earlier wanted those borders to be demarcated. And according to that, East Jerusalem will be the capital of Palestine. But right now, because we know that many of the Jews, they are living in the East Jerusalem as well because of Israel authorization over there, which is unauthorized basically. So, but the thing is that when in the recent speech our Prime Minister spoke, he didn't mention any of the reference to the borders or the capitals, because if India would have this spoke about the border issue, then Israel would have to, I mean, if in future the Palestinian state it is going to be carved out, then Israel would have to withdraw from the West Bank and East Jerusalem. So for that, it has to either pull out the Jewish settlements, or Israel has to do a land swap with the Palestinians. Okay, so I mean, India didn't made any reference to the border issue right now, and India's support for the two state solution remains, but it has now stopped short of the specifics. That means we are not specifically mentioning that what should be the border, but yes, we are in favor of this. I mean, two state solution. So this was all about India, Israel, how India is trying to make a delicate balance between these. Now the next article is with respect to the, I mean, the report of the India State of Forest Report 2017, which has come. And the basic idea of the article is that we have to review our strategy towards reviving our forest, and we have to move away from monoculture plantations. Okay, and because see, the target which we have to achieve with respect to the forest cover is 33% of the total area. Okay, and what this report is saying, and this report is basically based on the satellite imagery, and it has sent a positive balance in the form of, it's saying that 24.4% of India's land area is under some sort of forest or tree cover. But this is but a broad brush assessment. I mean, they're trying to say that it's not a real assessment. According to the report, forest and tree cover together registered a 1% rise over the previous estimate 2 years ago. Fine. See, this 1% is with respect to forest as well as tree cover. Okay, now this tree cover, it also includes plantations, and we know that under a plantation monoculture is practiced. So can we call that plantation agriculture as a forest? I mean, can we compare an age old or ancient forest with a newly planted this green ecosystem which we have created? Can it support that much of biodiversity? Not at all. There is no comparison at all. But here we are comparing. So that's why this report is said to be quite narrow, and it is not reflecting the real reality. Fine. So it's saying that it does not really provide deep insights into the integrity of the green areas. There has been an increase over, see, yes, with respect to this report, one can say that there has been an increase over the baseline cover of 20% at the turn of the century. Overall, 20% is increase, but yet tree cover is not the same as having biodiverse old growth forest, which I just told you that we cannot compare these two things. Okay, the ecosystem services performed by plantations that have a lot of trees grown for commercial purposes cannot be equated with those of undisturbed assemblage of plants, trees, and animals. Fine. So they're saying that you cannot compare any sort of commercial plantation and whatever type of ecosystem it is supporting, you cannot compare it with the type of age old forest And what I mean, the type of trees, the type of animals, and the other type of biodiversity, in fact the indigenous tribes that forest is supporting, you cannot compare it with a newly built commercial plantation, right? So that's why the report is narrow. And already Indian forests have suffered a lot, and the pre-colonial times also, then because of colonial exploitation as well, and then the developmental pressure also taking their toll. The restoration should therefore aid the return of native vegetation. We have to, I mean, look for that how the native vegetation can be returned. Okay, so in the report it's mentioned that there has been decrease in the cumulative loss of forest has been noted in Mizoram, Nagaland and Arunachal, okay, for around this much area. Okay, and this is a terrible loss because northeast, we also know that it is representing a global biodiversity hotspot. And in such a global biodiversity hotspot, loss of forest is definitely not recommended and not required. Okay, and whatever the loss, whatever the loss of forest in northeast is taking place, you cannot compensate it with growing trees or plantations in other states like Odisha, Assam, Telangana, or whatever it is, because the kind of biodiversity, okay, uh, this northeast forest was representing and is upholding, you cannot recreate it in some other states. Okay, so this is the issue. So naturally, environmental economists have come to regard the calculation of national accounts of wealth and development as weak because governments do not add the benefits of functions such as flood control and climate moderation to the value of forest. What it means, these lines, they're saying that, see, the idea of this whole national accounting, wealth development, it's weak, it's narrow, because you are not taking into account the kind of work, the kind of benefits these forests are providing us. These forests, they help us in flood control, they help us in climate moderation, because under the absence, if there is, I mean, this low forest cover or no forest cover, then flood control is definitely, it's really very difficult. Then we need to create embankments across the river, then we have to create other infrastructure, more technology is required. Fine. So forest, these forest trees and forest cover is having positive externalities which are not counted in this calculation of national accounts. So that's why this whole idea of national accounts of wealth and development is weak. Okay, loss, this because lost natural capital contributes to material losses as well. Fine. So India must review its programs that it has been pursuing to revive forest and move away from monoculture plantations that are favored by even forest development corporations in many states. Okay, and some sort of scientific forms are required to bring back the true nature back. So this was the whole idea, and dedicated efforts will be required to protect the precious forest of northeast. Okay, so this was and this particular article is also revealing the entire debate. I mean, these lines, these are very good lines, that how the natural capital, it leads to loss of natural capital, it leads to, you know, loss of material assets as well. So it is also with respect to that the entire debate that we have around development versus environment. So it's a good article. Next article is with respect to big data. We have also, I mean, I guess a day before yesterday we have done this on big data, that what are the issues with respect to big data. I'm just going to deal it in short. See, he's trying to say that, okay, you are having big data. Big data simply means collection of huge amount of data, and in order to utilize the data within this big data, you need to extract the information out from it. Okay, so it's difficult to imagine the great volume of data we supply to different agencies in our everyday life. Every time we surf internet, every time we post something on social media, or every time we do certain online purchases, fine, we are sharing our information about our identity. Fine. So it's believed that social media and networking service companies like Facebook, they are already having a lot of information. Okay, but careful data mining from big data might help understand our behavior in order to facilitate planning. See, it's said that big data can be used even to predict the behavior, to predict the trend as well. For example, there is a person who is doing some sort of online purchasing a lot, fine, and via networking sites we come to know that he is having some sort of links with some sort of radical organization or terrorist outfit. These all data, they are in this. I mean, if suppose this is a big data, all data is coming into this. So it's very easy for the authorities to track such persons who are having associations with terrorist outfits. And although they may not be having relations with the terrorist outfit, but their choice, their preferences, they can show that what sort of inclination they are having. Okay, so on the basis of their inclinations, the behavior could be predicted, and some sort of preemptive attempts can be made to this discourage any sort of tragedy or incident or disaster. For example, if that person, he is having such sort of preferences, or he's doing some sort of behavior on the net that the authorities find it very dangerous, and he can turn out to be a attacker, or the recent term which is these days very much in vogue, especially with respect to the west countries, lone wolf attacks. Okay, so these kind of attacks could be avoided, but the issue is that because we are having plethora of information within this big data, so the issue lies that will I mean it questions our capability to mine that data from this whole pool of data. Fine. So this is the issue. Data mining will be a issue. Okay. So the problem with so much information is that there is a much larger haystack now in which one has to search for the needle. Okay, haystack is simply a भूसा kind of एक बहुत बड़ा सा mountain kind of create हो गया है, and we have to search that point sort of needle from that. Okay, and he's giving example of this 2008 Google project, which was Google flu trend, in which Google was very excited and said that we'll predict that when and where the swine flu will take place based on the people's preferences and how many times people are visiting the doctors and whatever the information is on the net. But interesting thing is that the whole prediction of Google went wrong. Okay, and there was a pandemic regarding swine flu in 2009. So so we can see that because the Google was not able to data mine things properly, okay, from the big data whatever it has collected, that's why its predictions regarding the flu was also, it was a failure. Fine. So it focused on the need. So what is the need right now? It need is to focus on the need for correctly using the limitless potential of big data through efficient data mining. So the main word from this from this article that we can extract is data mining, efficient data mining. Okay, and even if you are having a lot of information with you, fine, there can be data blunders as well, low quality data, unreliable sources, then technical glitches can also be there. Fine. And one thing is also there. See, many a time the data which is present in this big data, it may not be the true data, it may be fake. Okay, so these kind of fake data which are actually not real, they are called spurious correlations. Many a times based on these fake data, or this fake identity, some sort of predictions are made, some sort of correlations are made, but uh, obviously those correlations, they'll not be true. Fine, they'll not be making any sense because they are based on the fake data. Fine. So these kind of correlations are called as nonsense correlations or spurious correlations. And if on the basis of these correlations, if we are going to predict any thing, then definitely the outcome is to be a failure only. Okay, so big data may mean more information, but it also means more false information, because the every information which is present on the net, every information that is being collected under this umbrella of big data is not true. Okay, today's world is obsessed with collecting more and more data while being inattentive to the necessity or capacity to use them. Okay, unless there is serious need, we should restrain ourselves from collecting data, as searching for the needle in haystack should not be made unnecessarily difficult. Okay, and they might involve the use of, okay, so what he's trying to say that in order to data mine properly, what we require is skills. Okay, involving analytics, decision making skills, logical thinking skills, and problem solving skills, apart from the traditional algorithms which we have feed into our computers to extract out the this data. Okay, to extract out the required data. So using routine algorithm is not enough. Too much reliance on available software is also a serious mistake. Okay, so this is all about this. Yeah, okay, here he has given example of a movie which is Minority Report, and it's saying that in that movie basically the movie is set in Washington DC in 2054, where the pre-crime police force is capable of predicting future murders. Okay, and on the basis of the data mining, they predicted something, and they basically accused one of the officer that he'll be doing such crime in future, but that officer sets out to prove his innocence later on. So obviously that the data mining didn't work properly. Okay, it was just a guesswork. So this is the whole idea regarding that. I mean, we should not collect information recklessly. We should be, I mean, we should be, vigilant enough, and we should not just collect the information. And to extract out the information properly, we need efficient data mining, apart from this traditional algorithms which are feed into the computers. This article is from Indian Express. It's regarding India Pakistan, okay, and the kind of ceasefire violations which are taking place across the LOC. And it's saying that the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Mehbooba Mufti's statement is an important reminder that India Pakistan dialogue is essential for peace in Kashmir. Okay, so we are not going into that what politically she has said. See, uh, she said that we have to be in a dialogue process with the Pakistan, and she knows that for saying this, okay, she may be termed as anti-national, but she knows better than anyone else that the situation in her state has deteriorated on three fronts. Okay, the situation in Jammu Kashmir has deteriorated on three fronts. First, there has been a sharp increase in ceasefire violations on the line of control. Okay, there has been, sharp increase in the ceasefire violations. Second thing, infiltration from across the border is continuing. And third, neither attacks by militants nor even the number of militants decrease, despite police and security forces killing over 200 of them. Okay, so, the thing is that, so these are the three reasons: increase in ceasefire violations. Second, the infiltration is increasing. And third is that neither the attacks by the militants and nor the number of militants is decreasing, despite a huge amount of, police and security forces. Anyways, so the thing is that when in 2015 there was an alliance between PDP and BJP to rule the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and they both agreed that India-Pakistan dialogue and talks between all internal stakeholders were essential for peace in Kashmir. Okay, but with this, Pathankot attack and then Uri attack, what has happened that a public opinion has been created where even talk about talks is a taboo. Okay, so the people, they are not ready that the government should engage itself in some sort of talk. Okay, not even with Pakistan, and even the internal talks as well. Okay, but the thing, and but I mean, at least for the public consumption, but newspapers have reported that national security advisors of both countries, India and Pakistan, they are having regular meetings. But the problem is that there are limits to these secret talks between top security officials. They, how much, I mean, there's a limit that how much they can do to elevate the situation. Okay, day after day, a number of soldiers are dying on the LOC. In fact, the people who are living around the border villages, they are facing the wrath of these ceasefire violations. So definitely a definite solution is required with respect to this. So what they are saying that, okay, so apart from this, they are saying that I'm not going into the politics, that what the defense minister has said and all after the Sanjuvan attack. They're saying that a responsible government should be able to tell the people that war is not an operation, because we have seen that people on Facebook and on other social media platforms, they're saying that we should have a war with Pakistan, let us teach them a lesson and all. But government should try to make people aware that, see, war is not a solution. Okay, war is not an operation. Because if India is going to be in a war like situation with Pakistan, then there will be loss, not only for the Pakistan but for India side as well. Okay, it will mean more destruction and more death of soldiers and people. Okay, so the important thing is that already Jammu Kashmir is highly communalized right now. So we need not to increase the divisions among the people passing any sort of statements. What right now is required, a dialogue process between the internal stakeholders and as well as between India and Pakistan. Okay, this article is really very good regarding the education pattern that we are having in India, and it is based on the context that we know that UP students, they basically defaulted on examinations out of fear of an anti-cheating drive. And this shows because lakhs of students, they are leaving the exam just because they are afraid of that there will be stringent anti-cheating drive will be there. So it shows that poor quality of teaching we have in schools. Okay, so it's like a sixth of 1/6 of the students, they have dropped out of the ongoing class 10th and 12th exams in Uttar Pradesh after the state government threatened a crackdown on cheating. It's a tailing comment on the road in India's school system. That means the kind of this problem we are having in our India's school system. Okay, it's ruining. I mean, the entire school system is ruining. So okay, so on January 30, actually, the UP chief minister, he basically warned the DMs and district inspectors of schools that they would be held responsible if any sort of unfair means were would be there at the examination center. So obviously the anti-cheating drive, it would be more stringent with respect to the classes and the examination halls. So out of that fear, about 10.5 lakh of the 66 lakh students who were due to take the secondary and higher secondary exams in the state, they withdrew their candidature. Okay, and UP government has interpreted it as a success of its anti-cheating drive. Okay, but there is another perspective to see this. Although UP government is successful because now they are the ones who were basically dependent on this cheating to clear the exam. They are out of the examination race. But the issue that is that this is only scratching the surface only. More entrenched problem is there, and that is pedagogic reforms. The pattern of teaching that we are having in schools, that is also to be reformed. Because at the very first place, why these students, they were in fear of not giving the examination, just because there will be stringent anti-cheating rules, okay, or drive. So the fear of failure driving students to default on exams is, after all, a symptom of poor teaching. Okay, so access, see, like for any educational system, there are certain prerequisites, and they are access to schooling. First of all, there should be availability and accessibility of school. Then there should be a proper learning environment. Okay, a proper learning environment. Then appropriate pedagogic tools are required. Okay, so while reforms have been there with respect to this first element, with respect to the availability and accessibility of school to the students, but very little has been done on this, increasing the learning outcomes of the students. And in the last month only, we have two reports: annual status of education report by NGO Pratham, and then NCRT's national achievement survey. They show that there is a decline in learning outcomes from lower to higher grades. And even we are about to achieve our target with respect to Right to Education Act. Okay, I mean, having the universal enrollment for 6 to 14 years of age. But see, universal enrollment is not a surety that the students which have been enrolled in the schools, they'll be having the required amount of learning outcomes. Are they learning anything in schools or not? They are being enrolled in schools, but what about after that? Okay, so in fact, this annual status on education report, it showed that more than 25% of the youth in the age group of 14 to 18, they even can't read a basic text fluently. And although 90% of them are in school, even then they can't speak any basic text fluently. So the question is that why do an overwhelming number of schools, they are failing to provide meaningful education? Okay, so I mean, according to District Information System of Education, they have basically created a database, and on that basis, barely 10% of the country's 1.5 million schools is satisfied the Right to Education Act norms on teacher availability and infrastructure. See, within this Right to Education Act, there are certain norms with respect to that what should be the criteria for teachers availability, and the standard teacher to pupil ratio is also there. What sort of infrastructure should be there with respect to the schools, that means the availability of toilets, drinking water, and etc. But this District Information System for Education report, it shows that only 10% of the entire schools in India are having these kind of, fulfilling these kind of norms. So when schools are not fulfilling these basic norms, okay, then forget about the quality of education. So see, and the issue is, it's the colonial view that teachers are considered only as information dispensers, okay, and student as passive recipients. There is no bi-directional, transfer of information, no questioning from the students, only unidirectional transfer of information is taking place from the teacher. And moreover, whatever the information teacher is giving to the students, that is not having any connection with their real life. Okay, so the children, they are not able to they're not able to connect themselves with the kind of information they are getting by their teachers. So that's why the learning outcomes are very poor in India, even in primary and even in secondary education. Okay, so they're saying that while cheating in school examination is definitely the worst manifestation of the system. If a student is cheating in examination, that means he or she has not learned anything. And obviously the question will also be on the teacher who is teaching them. But the kind of approach, the punitive measures that we have taken to sort this all, the UP government has taken, indeed it's a good step. Obviously it's good for those students at least who are trying to learn something. But the issue is that more deeper introspection is required, more deeper reforms are required with respect to the teachers, with respect to the infrastructure, and also with respect to the kind of information and the way of information being given to the students, so that the learning outcomes could be increased. These two articles are really very good, and these are from the Indian Express.